Terri Wu is with us from the Epoch Times. Terri, great to have you with us.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
It was good to see you Saturday. Where were we? Saturday night, right? At Steve Bannon's event? Was that Saturday?
Exactly.
Yeah, time is flying by. Give us an update on what is going on with Hong Kong now. It's kind of been pushed to the back burner, pushed off the news cycle because of, we're getting 21 days before the election. Give us an update.
Oh, thank you, John. I was going to mention exactly the same thing. The dire situation in Hong Kong deserves everyone's attention. Many of the Hong Kong protesters carried American flags. The other night when we were covering Steve Bannon's event together, I was live streaming it to the Hong Kong audience. They said in the live chat, "Save Hong Kong, Mr. Trump. Please save Hong Kong, Mr. Bannon." And Hong Kong is the global front line of the free world versus the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And the Chinese Communist Party knows this. We need more Americans to know about this. The CCP is drying up Hong Kong, sucking up the life out of Hong Kong. And when I talk to folks in front of the Walter Reed Hospital, they care about Hong Kong tremendously because they understand that Hong Kong is not just Hong Kong. Hong Kong is kind of now the cornerstone of the free world versus the CCP and the communism. And they also see the impact of communism. It's not a remote idea anymore. There's communism right here in the backyard in America. So I just go by saying that the dire situation in Hong Kong goes on in many ways, that Hong Kong is losing its judicial independence, and the education system is severely infiltrated by communism. The election is completely, even though they've never had real fair election, but the election now, it looks like it's going to be completely taken away from them. The freedom of speech and religious freedom, the Vatican has announced to renew the China-Vatican Pact for another 2 years, and this involves of the CCP appointing the bishop in Hong Kong. So the Vatican has already said that it's going to appoint a Beijing-friendly, someone that Beijing endorses, right? So the top issue in Hong Kong right now is the Hong Kong 12. When I spoke to folks, I find that people are more in tune about the protest last summer, but this is the latest. 12 Hong Kongers tried to escape to Taiwan on August 23rd by boat, and they were intercepted by Chinese Coast Guard, arrested, and have been detained in mainland China for over a month now. And their family members don't have access to them. The lawyer hired by the families don't have access to them. And the 12 people aged between 17 and 33, most of them have been arrested and charged in Hong Kong due to their participation in protests. That's why they were trying to leave Hong Kong and escape to Taiwan, where they can have democracy and freedom. And what's notable is that this is the first formal case under the new national security law. Now, the CCP has secretly transferring the Hong Kong protests to mainland China, but because of this new national security law, they don't have to do it in secrecy anymore. They're doing it openly, and the Hong Kong 12 is the first case. This October the 1st was the first Chinese National Day after the National Security Law, and it also happened to be the Mid-Autumn, the Moon Festival, which is Chinese people's Thanksgiving. So Hong Kongers were sending thousands of postcards to the detention center in Shenzhen, a neighboring city in Hong Kong where the 12 were detained, and wishing them best of luck, but also putting pressure on the mainland police to let them know that Hong Kongers will not allow these 12 people disappear on Earth, like many others.
Well, it's a tough situation there, but if Biden wins, you realize that there's unlikely to be any real U.S. pressure on the CCP to keep China relatively free. So as someone that covers Hong Kong, what do you see the ramifications here if Biden were to win?
Okay, that's one of the reasons that Hong Kongers are closely watching the U.S. election now, and it is really, I think a lot of people agree, whether people like Trump or not, they would agree that 2020 election is the most important of all in history so far, and definitely that's a lot of Hong Kongers view as well, because they know that the Hong Kongers who want freedom and democracy, they want Trump to win. Because if Trump doesn't win, they know that there will be no chance for Hong Kong to keep fighting. Because as I want to share with your audience that the Hong Kong protests have gone through different phases, and Hong Kongers have kept up the creativity, right? So at the beginning, it was millions going out on the street, and that caught a lot of people's, the world's attention. And then the COVID hit, and then the national security law hit. So in the most recent October 1st, a lot of Hong Kongers were acting on their own, individually, because there's a restriction order about gathering up to a group of 4 people. So think about it. In Hong Kong, where the CCP is in charge, to act without group organization, just on your own, on the street, that takes a lot of courage. And they've done that. The young women and young men, they're on the street with a loudspeaker talking about their expression. And there's also a person waving a very sizable American flag. He got harassed by the police. Another man carrying a yellow balloon like Winnie the Pooh, because we all know that Winnie the Pooh is the nickname of Xi Jinping. And the police checked him many, many times, but eventually had to let him go because he was just, he had nothing in his bag. He's just carrying a yellow balloon. So Hong Kongers need our help, and they know that Biden is the candidate that the CCP endorses. And there's no mistake about it, because in Hong Kong there are only 2 independent newspapers that still survive with a print edition. That's the Epoch Times and Apple Daily. All the other independent media had to just survive online, and then we have tons of different variations, different versions of print editions carrying the CCP party line to different degrees, and they all endorse Biden. And so we all know, with ethnic Chinese who either grew up in mainland China or in Hong Kong now, we know that there's a reason that the CCP endorses someone. Not to mention the Hunter Biden and everything else. We're not surprised by that, but whoever the candidate the CCP endorses is not going to be good for the people.
It's a sad state of affairs right now when you're looking at a potential Joe Biden administration. And you know that the people of Hong Kong are going to get sold out because he's going to sell out to China immediately. Look, Kamala Harris is the one that said on the campaign trail, elect me president. And at 12:01, this is her words, 12:01 on January 20th, I will end all the tariffs on China and open up our economies and trade to the way it was. She said 12:01. So obviously you know where they stand on it. That's why the Biden-Harris administration potential is the choice of the CCP. They want Trump out of there. They don't want to deal with him. They know that Biden, they already gave him $1.5 billion for his son. They know they can manipulate him, and they know that they have a friend in Kamala Harris. And so, and the big loser, if Biden were to win in this election, the big losers is going to be the people of Hong Kong and their thirst for freedom.
Yes, and let me share with you the lessons that Hong Kongers have learned. With these 12 people, initially the story was they intruded the mainland Chinese waters. That's why they were captured. And the Hong Kong government did nothing to bring them back home, because these family members of the 12, they kept asking the Hong Kong government and say, bring them home and let them face justice here. Bring them home to Hong Kong. At least we have access to them. At least we know the system in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government didn't help. Now, the latest came out is that it was a joint cooperation between the Hong Kong government and the CCP. And the Hong Kong government told the CCP mainland the information about the 12, and the Hong Kong government flying service sent out airplanes and circled the departure area. And this is public flight records, so people found out. Circled the departure area and the routes for hours. They were captured around 9 a.m. and several Hong Kong government planes were surrounding the area starting from 4 a.m. So more and more evidence now point out that there's collusion between the Hong Kong government, and Hong Kongers felt that this is the biggest betrayal, especially the chief executive Carrie Lam claimed that he was the mother of Hong Kongers. So I have to say that, President Trump mentioned it, but let's say if Biden takes office, there's going to be a lot of sellout scenarios, and that Americans don't even know about. They're like you were just not in the room and sold out silently, just like Hong Kongers sold out. And think about the fury of Hong Kongers, because they didn't grow up in mainland China. They didn't think that this is the norm, and for Americans to be sold out in the future, and as Steve Bannon talked about the managed decline, right? The Washington elite making more money on the way down than on the way up. There's going to be more sellout, and
you're right.
And Americans have been sold out for decades.
You're right. It's sad, the state of affairs right now in Hong Kong. But the best thing, as you know, the best thing that can happen, Terri Wolf from the Epoch Times, is that Donald J. Trump gets reelected president. He'll stand firm with the freedom lovers in Hong Kong. Terri, thank you for sharing that. Always good to have you on. Thank you so much. John Fredericks Radio Network.